What's up? Rafael Cortez here, back on the CEO Pulse podcast. Today, we are sitting down with my friend Trent Ellingford. He is a partner at the Real Estate Knowledge Institute, has a background of over 20 years in real estate investments. You've done everything from traditional, or not traditional, but residential real estate to high ticket item, sales on trainings and coaching. Now, you are primarily working in the commercial space. So, I mean, you've practically done it all over the last 20 years, man. I want to tap into all of that, and then more importantly, I think I want to tap into a couple of things that we were talking about earlier as far as what's relevant today in terms of entrepreneurship and looking at different opportunities within the commercial real estate space.
Yeah, so, great. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. And I do want to say this, I definitely haven't done everything. I've been involved in a lot, right? And what I love about this business, the more I learn, I always realize there's more to learn, right? There's always somebody operating at the next level. And if you have, and you and I have had this conversation too, right? That opportunity to work with other people so you can continue to level up. And anyway, that's a huge part of real estate KI, which maybe we'll discuss. But that's my point being is kind of that cliche statement, you are who you surround yourselves with. And I'd always heard that at a young age. It never really clicked or made sense until I got older. Mm-hmm. Again, the saying's like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a new room. Right?
Absolutely.
If you make the most money out of your group of friends, you need to start getting another group of friends. And so, like, honestly, I feel lucky to work with the people that I work with because it allows me to challenge myself, push myself out of my comfort zone, and continue to do more. And to your point, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity right now that, honestly, I think a lot of people are just missing. They don't even realize it's there.
I mean, absolutely. I mainly focus on the residential side of things. I mean, I've done commercial and in traditional and real estate investment stuff, but not to the volume that you guys are doing. Not to the level that you guys are doing it. Which to me, I mean, one of the things that I take out of conversations, it's a perspective, right? And having the first few conversations that we had a while back just helped me to think in a different way, to look at deals in a different way, and it's very interesting to see how like right now we're talking about funding and a couple of deals and structure and creative things and along those terms. People don't know what they don't know. Right? We don't know what we don't know. I didn't know that you could structure commercial stuff in this type of way. And now I don't know the ins and outs, but I have a notion of it, right? So I can look at something from a different set of from a different angle, and bring it over and maybe do something with that. But it's important to check ourselves on the perspective that we have. If we stay in that same place, looking at at things from one point of view, I think there's a lot that's being missed, especially given the way the market is right now. And this is not a real estate specific show, but I think I'm seeing the level of opportunity that's out there. So I wanna I don't care. I'm gonna focus on that.
Yeah, and so many of the principles from real estate carry over to entrepreneurship or business or even personal for that matter. But, to kind of go just tee off of what you said, I stayed away from commercial real estate for the longest time because I had a lot of just plain out misconceptions about it. And I really think most people have a lot of misconceptions. And that's funny. It's also why it's created such an opportunity because so many people stay away from it, right? They stick with what they know. I thought, okay, I have to have a huge net worth. I have to have a bunch of assets. I have to have a ton of money to put down. I have to have impeccable credit. And a lot of those things would be true if you buy conventionally, if you're getting a conventional loan to buy, which I think when people take that step from residential, the next logical step is maybe into multifamily, which technically can be commercial, but it's kind of its own bucket, right? Mm-hmm. Very few people then take the step into true commercial real estate. And if they do, then they try and attack it with a conventional loan, and then the bank's going to want at least 25%, if not more. And there's just all these hurdles they have to jump through, and so they stay away from it. Plus, it's a different language. It's, again, human nature, right? We're creatures of habit, and you stay in your comfort zone and what you know. When commercial real estate was first really broken down to me, and I know I told you this, and I know you had John on the show, and John's really who I learned that I want to say I've definitely done my own homework and you learn by doing, but I'd say 95% of what I know about commercial real estate I learned from him. It just really opened my eyes to it's actually a lot easier in many ways. It's so much easier to get seller financing, for example, to buy properties on terms, where then now your credit doesn't matter, right? Your size of your assets or your holdings don't matter. And really that's what I really love about the business is the creative side.
Yeah,
it's solving problems and figuring out how to put the puzzle together, and it makes it fun. And the other nice thing is the upside in commercial is just a lot bigger.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the payouts, the spreads that we call them, as we call them in wholesaling, but it's the potential and the opportunities. I think it's a lot bigger. I was talking to John about that, and I made the comment of blue ocean, not necessarily being a blue ocean, because it's real estate, it's commercial, and then there's still people into it. And he goes, "Yeah, man, it's about as blue as it gets right now in real estate." But I think you have to know how to look at things, right, from the right perspective. To kind of piggyback on your point is I looked at real estate, commercial real estate, the exact same way. All right, if it's a building that I want to buy, if it's something that I'm going to go traditional route, financing here, financing there, I got to have $1 billion in the bank to buy a $200,000 property that's commercial because it's commercial. And in my head, I was just, I was conditioned to think that it was that hard. And now I'm just looking at things from a different perspective. I understand that there's ways of coming in to a deal and then being creative about it, and then just putting pieces together where you, even if you wholesale it, which is one of the things that you're doing right now, as a value add asset, you can still stay in the deal and then capitalize from that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. There's so much opportunity in just the reposition side, keeping the asset, negotiating seller financing, coming with minimal amount down. Your price per square foot on rehab is significantly less because you're not doing, residential for your fix and flipper. They're doing master bedrooms and kitchens and granite countertops. Where, for example, if it's office, you're doing some drywall, some flooring, some paint, and give it a nice curb appeal. But your dollar per square foot is significantly less. But it's coming back to, let's just talk about the wholesaling piece, right, for just a minute. I'm sure your viewers know this. When you talk about wholesaling, it's solving problems.
Absolutely.
Right. That's where your opportunity is finding that distressed seller. Might be distressed because lost their job, can't make a payment, property's headed to pre-foreclosure, maybe it's a death, a divorce, multitude of reasons. And if you can solve a problem, you can help them and get paid. Well, commercial real estate is really no different. It's solving some of those problems. So when you talk about the value add or when I explain it to people, a lot of times I'll say, well, it's performance-based wholesaling. Look, it's wholesaling commercial real estate. But what I mean by that is value in commercial real estate is not based off of comps. Mm-hmm. It's based off of the performance of that asset, right? Everybody's heard cap rates. So what is the income, the net income on that property? And that's going to determine the value of that property. That's why, coming back to opportunity, that commercial property that sat there vacant for 2 years doesn't have rent roll. It doesn't have the financials to get a solid loan from the bank. So it's very difficult for the seller to sell.
Yeah.
So how do you solve that problem? Well, you can give them their price if they'll give you their terms. Maybe they carry that note for you at a favorable interest rate, maybe interest-only payments, like this building, deferred payments for 9 months, so you can get it repositioned, leased out, and then performing. So from the wholesale side, wholesaling in commercial real estate isn't new, but there's not a lot of people that do it, right? There's not seminars out there teaching it or YouTube channels out there really teaching it or gurus teaching it.
To me, it's surprising, man. I've been in this space, in the real estate investment space since 2009, right? I mean, we're talking 11, 12 years now. I've never heard anybody approach the commercial wholesale side, like you guys do.
Yeah, and there's always going to be an opportunity, but there's a very unique opportunity right now. And really, it all comes down to COVID. It really does. So when COVID hit, I think all of us as investors wondered how that was going to shake up the market. You know, a lot of speculation that the housing market was going to crash when the exact opposite happened, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, limited supply, high demand, and prices skyrocketed, made the residential side very competitive, but also very lucrative, right, if you can find these deals. On the commercial real estate side, we saw certain asset classes that just took a hard hit in the nose. Hospitality, your hotels, your motels, in some areas, I mean, they were at 15, 20% occupancy because people were quarantined, everybody was shut down. And, you know, your bigger hotel chains, your Hiltons, your Marriotts, they can weather that storm. But you think of the smaller mom and pop shop, privately ran hotels, how long can they...
And there's plenty of those out there, too.
There's a bunch out there. How long can they survive at 20% occupancy? Office space is another one that just took a really, really hard hit. Oh, yeah. People working from home, a lot of people talking about not going back, companies downsizing, even those that are looking to rent office space are saying, hey, I'm not going to spend $3,000 a month to have a couple thousand square foot office. I'll spend $800 a month to have a couple hundred square feet, right?
Yeah.
And so office took a really hard hit. Where on the other hand, industrial in a lot of markets here in Phoenix it's hard to find, and it's selling at a premium. Multifamily would be the other. Multifamily is always a very sought after asset class, but right now it's right there with residential. You know, here in Phoenix and Scottsdale and Mesa and Chandler, the surrounding areas, you can't find multifamily for sale, and if you do, it's selling at a 4.5 cap rate or less. Which,
I remember when sevens were a no. Yeah. Like, no, 7 is terrible. It's bad. Like, now you see a 4, like, yeah, I'll take it.
So, where's the opportunity there? And look, I don't want to make this whole show about wholesale and commercial real estate, but I want the viewers to understand it's recognizing maybe a blind spot or a hole in the market, a problem, and then solving it. So we got a couple problems, right? Number one, you have the real estate investor that owns commercial real estate, that owns office space, but now they're at 40% occupancy. They can't lease anything out. The tenants they have, when they reach the end of their lease, they're going to move out. So they're looking at this thing that's bleeding money, or it could be the hotel owners. On the other side, you have the multifamily investors. That's their niche. That's all they do is multifamily. Well, it's really difficult to find those value adds right now. And if you do, they're still selling at a premium. And the other option is to find the land and to build, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit about lending, so we can revisit that. So let's bridge that gap, right? So I think I've mentioned this one to you, but one that we just did was the office space in Youngtown. So about 35 minutes from here. 33,000 square feet of office space, about 40% occupancy, and the tenants that are still have leases, they want to move. So the owner, he wants out. He wants to sell. Now, based off of that performance, the rent roll, the net income on that property, it's probably worth around $1.5 million. Okay, let's call it 1.6 is what we actually got it under contract for. Well, right next to it, literally right next to it, is a large apartment complex. I think it's about 70 units, 70, 77, somewhere around there, 77 doors. That is in escrow as we speak for about $8.75 million. So you have office space that's selling for 1.6, and then you have multifamily that's selling for over $8.5 million. One's performing, one's not performing. Plus, multifamily is selling at a much lower cap rate than office. Interestingly enough, this office, there's multifamily on this side of it, and there's multifamily across the street.
Behind it,
it's completely enveloped with multifamily. So my partners and I, we got it under contract for $1.6 million. And the plan was to convert it to multifamily, just turn it into apartments. Spoke with the city. The city's on board. It's a small city, too. It's 3 people that sit on the city council, more than willing to work with us to change the usage of that building. That was the plan, but some other opportunities arose, and so we decided to just sell it. Shopped it out to one of my buyers who is in the multifamily space, and they bought it from us for $2 million. Okay.
Wow.
They'll put about $2 million into it and turn that into, I believe it's 55 units, but there's a bunch of unused land in the back that they're going to go vertical on, and they'll add another 80 units in the back.
Yeah, I walked that property. I remember.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah.
So they'll be into it all said and done. Let's call it 6. They think their exit will be close to 12. Okay, for them.
Wow.
Huge upside for them. So
wow, it's insane.
Here's what we did. We helped this individual that owns this office. He's had it listed forever. He's trying to sell it. He can't sell it. Nobody wants to buy it because everybody sees it as office, and office is getting their ass kicked right now, right? So nobody wants to buy it. Well, we helped him. We're buying it, and we gave him retail based off of how it's performing. On the other side, you have these investors that want to buy multifamily or something that they can turn into multifamily because there's such high demand. These buyers in particular, their problem is deal flow. They want to be taking down 4 or 5 at a time, but they don't have enough deal flow. We can provide that to them, but by bridging that gap and just wholesaling, right? All we did is we're trading the paper. We make money in the middle, but it's not a typical residential deal. I mean, that's what, $400,000.
Yeah, it's a $400,000. You know, I mean, it wouldn't be an assignment fee.
Yeah.
But see, that's about creativity, man. I mean, you're coming into it. You're looking at. I mean, you guys actually spoke to the board to see if it was doable,
how did you? So typically, because that's actually a really good question. Questions I have are about the zoning, the usage, and just so the listeners know, any end buyer, that's going to be their concern.
Right.
It's zoned for hospitality. Is the city going to work with us? Or it's zoned for office. Is the city going to work with us and allow us to change it? So I can't speak for the cities. They're all different, but it's much better to have something that's performing and nice versus something that's vacant and run down.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So we found that in most areas, the city is willing to work with you. What was not, this one was interesting because typically I have the end buyer. I have an idea of what their exit is going to be when I come up with a price to sell it or to wholesale it or assign it. But ultimately, they're going to underwrite it themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so I give them details, let them underwrite it, and they need to speak to the city. I'm not going to speak just to what the city is or isn't going to do. So sometimes the due diligence period is going to be a little bit longer for that reason. This one in particular, the deal was actually going to fall out because the money was going to be allocated somewhere else unless we had a buyer. So I had shopped it to these buyers. They said, yes, we're in. We just need to speak to the city. I literally had 24 hours left before this deal was going to fall out. And I talked to them like, have you talked to the city? And they said, no, nobody's calling us back. I hung up, found the number to the city, called the city council, got a woman on the phone. I asked, who's the head of the city council? Here's what we're trying to do, times of the essence. And she told me the name, so I wrote the name down. I said, can I speak with him, please? And she said, well, actually, he just walked into a meeting. But when he's out, I'll give him a message to give you a call. And I said, well, I know this isn't urgent to you, but it is to me. This deal's going to fall out if I don't have an idea that the city's willing to work with us
right. on
this. And I explained to her what we were wanting to do with it. And she said, yeah, I'll forward that message and I'll have him give you a call. Now, mind you, this was on a Friday. And so I said, kill people with honey, or how's it go? You catch more flies with honey, not vinegar, right? But you got to ask for what you want. And so I just said, hey, I really appreciate that, but that sounds like a Monday callback. I really need a callback today. Is there any chance that you could just communicate that and have him call me back today? And she's like, yeah, I'll do my best. He called me back 30 minutes later. I told him what we were looking to do with the property. He said, yeah, there's 3 of us that sit on the council. He said, that's absolutely something we would be willing to do. I said, do you mind me putting you on hold for just 1 second? I put him on hold. I called my buyer, brought my buyer in, so he heard it not from me. He heard it from them. And then, yeah, we wrapped that deal up. So
wow.
That's huge too, right?
Like, absolutely, man.
Make shit happen.
Make shit happen. Going the extra mile. It's a phone call. It's going to be a $400,000, phone call. at the end of the day, right? It's empowering you to get that deal done.
If I just not made that call or waited, not given that extra push that, hey, I need that call back now, that deal would have fallen through.
It's insane. And I mean, the tenacity that you need to have as an entrepreneur is, I mean, something like that needs to happen, right? Normally, I think it wouldn't be one of those things that people think about, right out of the gate. It's all right, cool. I have to wait, until they process. But at the end of the day, every office that you call has a system. Every office, has a person that you can actually have a conversation there and be civil, right? Be creative, and then think on terms that can get you to where you want to get to.
But people are human. Be real with people. Yeah, you're going to get jerks that don't want to work with you, right?
Yeah.
But just this morning, we had a meeting with a couple gentlemen that we are probably going to be partner on a couple projects with, and they need to get some approval on some from Tempe, okay? And so they had submitted a request. They said, don't come in. It flat out says, don't come in. We won't meet with you. You need to email. You need to submit a request. Mm-hmm. They had submitted an email, still no email back, said, screw it, walked in.
Yeah.
Just walked in. It's a ghost town. Nobody's there, and somebody sat with them. And so that they got what they needed so they can move forward. So, yes, it just comes back to that taking action. And you can sit back and wait for it to happen, or you can go out and make it happen.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, being decisive about something and then having the intention behind what you want to, really create. Here, you went the extra mile for not just for the deal, but also for the buyer, right? I mean, you're connecting two people together who are going to make, a grand slam out of something that's there. But if you hadn't taken those, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Those 10, 15 minutes tops to do what you did, the deal would have fallen through. And it goes to show, right? Again, going back to tenacity, going back to taking action, what it takes to get shit happen. Sometimes it's not necessarily the biggest of the obstacles that we come across. They just seem like, oh, you know what, it's gone.
Yeah, because look,
how do you weight it?
And look, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here because I definitely make mistakes, and I look back at things I could have maybe done something more. Mm-hmm. But it would have been so easy to say, well, they've been calling the city for the last 3 days, and they're not calling them back. They're not going to call me back, right? So, and not even make the phone call.
Right. Think outside the box. Think outside the box and make shit happen. No, I love it, man. So you've had success in commercial, and you've been in real estate investments over the last 20 years, and you've seen ups and downs. I know you told me that you had a couple bad deals happen, like when you were first getting started. So you've seen the emotional roller coaster that being on your own and having that entrepreneur spirit can bring. Biggest challenge.
First of all, I would never tell somebody that they couldn't figure stuff out on their own. It's just at what cost, right? I really don't want to go through this very long, drawn-out, boring story. The short of it is, when I purchased my first investment property, I just dropped out of college. Okay, college dropout. Finished my freshman year. I took a job during the summer where I was making. You'll probably laugh at this. I was making $50,000 a year.
Balling.
Yeah. At that age, I really thought I was.
Oh, bro. Kindred spirits.
Yeah. And so had a little bit of an ego already because, look, I grew up in a really small town farming community. Just anyway, like, it's not a poor me story. Great childhood. It's not like we were rolling. Okay. So anyway, making pretty decent money. I bought my first house. And I did everything I wouldn't do now. I spoke to a realtor. I bought it off the L.E.S.S. I paid retail for it. I got a conventional loan.
The checklist. Yeah,
exactly.
You went through the checklist.
You don't know what you don't know. That's how you buy real estate. So I bought the house, and I started renting it to college students, which again was a little ego play for me too, because now I've dropped out of college and I'm renting this house to college students. And I wasn't making a ton of money, but I was making a couple $100 a month positive cash flow, and I honestly thought, this is easy. I see why people invest in real estate. That was easy. Why doesn't everybody do this? And so it was a little less than a year later, I bought a second one. And I just did the exact same thing. Then what I did, so this is right before the recession, okay? home prices are going up like crazy. I got a bunch of equity in these properties. I have some cash flow coming in on the properties. I'm making what I think is pretty good money. And these guys, they were, I could call them friends, more acquaintances, who I thought, and that's another thing, I thought that they knew more about the business than me. Were working supposedly on this large development that I could invest in. So zero due diligence on my end. I leveraged equity out of my first property, that first one I bought, which I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'll share it. It's just the truth. I put myself in a negative cash flow position on it.
Buying the deal, going into it?
Yeah, so by pulling out equity on that first property, because I pulled out 100% of the equity. So you've done this for a while. Were you investing pre-recession?
No,
You're
I started.
young.
Yeah,
still,
2009.
You're still a kid. So anyway,
2009.
banks would lend 100%. They'd lend 110%. It was so easy to get the money. And so again, uneducated, right? Uneducated.
I was doing loans in 2006.
There you go.
I understand how that went. Yeah, basically you had a pull, so you could get
you
money.
could get it, and that was exactly it.
Yep.
So I pulled all the equity out. So I go from this positive cash flow position of a couple $100 a month to a negative cash flow position of a few $100 a month to get that cash. Now, how I rationalized or justified that in my head at that time was, well, home prices are going up like crazy. I'll more than make that money back in equity, and I'm making enough money, because I was making even more now, that whatever negative cash flow there is, I can cover that. Plus, I'm going to roll this money into something else, and I'm going to make a bunch. Look, I'm a big believer in leverage, but I don't believe in over leverage.
Yeah, right? You don't want that.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I did. And so I invested in this investment blindly, foolishly, stupidly, like whatever. Like I messed up, plain and simple. And then you can guess the rest of the story. The housing market crashed, right? I mean, everything crashed. And so this deal that I invested in went belly up. And so I lost every penny that I put into that. You pay for education one way or another. Very expensive learning experience. The property I have is now down in value, so I can't sell it. Because I leveraged it 100%. And now it's worth less than what I owe on it. And I'm in a negative cash flow position. It's like, I mean, that whole experience, I mean, that was tough. That was really, really tough to get out of. But you know, to steal from Tony Robbins, I feel like I'm throwing all these like quotes at you, but I love this stuff. Tony Robbins says life doesn't happen to you; it happens for you. And I believe that. Like, I could look at that and feel bad for myself, or I could point the finger and say it was the market's fault, it was the economy's fault, and that's not true. That was my fault. That was completely my fault. I wasn't educated. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just figuring it out by trial and error. I over leveraged myself. Like, so many mistakes I had made that put me in that position. Had I done things correctly, when the market dropped, I'd be in a solid cash flow position. I'd still have equity in that property. So if I needed to sell, I could, or I could just hang on to and rent it because it's making me money. And then we all know what happens. The market goes down, it comes back up, and I'm in a solid spot. That anyway.
You ride the cycle,
Yeah, so after that, I really started to actively seek out investors and mentors, and to learn from people that were operating at a higher level than me. Because if you want to get there, learn from somebody who's doing it, right? And I still practice that all the time. I was saying at the beginning of your show, like, I'm amazed at some of the people I get to work with, and like, I meet these people, I'm like, oh my God, they're operating at such a high level, and I have the belief that, like, if somebody can do something, so can I, right? Just show me how they did it, and let's start learning.
Yeah.
But then I'll always meet somebody else that's even operating at a higher level than that. It's crazy. So if you're teachable, willing to invest in yourself, because I've done that too. Like, not everybody. I don't always tell people about that. Like, I know a little bit about your background. My background is not the same, but I think there's a few similarities where you have a closed mindset where people are going to judge you for that, right? It's, if you go buy a new car for $30,000, everybody's going to love your car and tell you how awesome it is. But if you invested that in yourself, whether it's education or you don't get the same type of feedback. If you invest in a business because you're going to start a business, people they start pointing out all the things that can go wrong and you're going to lose your money. Well, you're going to lose your ass in that car.
But that's a given. That's a guaranteed. Yeah. That's a guaranteed loss.
So, it's not for everybody, but I think there are a lot of people out there that really want more out of life, and it's not easy. If everybody, again, kind of cliche, if it was easy, everybody would do it, but it's absolutely worth it. And yeah, there's going to be ups and downs. You're going to take some blows. Things don't always go exactly as planned, but if you can bounce things off of somebody who's done it, right, and they can look at it, it's a shortcut, I guess, is what I'm saying. You don't skin your knees as much, and
I completely agree, man. I think besides, right, the time that it saves you to, it's at the end of the day, and I fell into this. At the end of the day, it was an ego thing for me to sit there and try to figure everything out. I did it in my first business. I lost a lot of money learning, right? So I was like, no, I'm not gonna pay somebody to tell me. It's like, I can figure this out. I can figure it out. I mean, I can't tell you how much more expensive it was just to go through it until I ended up, finding this one dude out of like New Jersey or something that had like a small course on transportation, and I haven't seen anything on that topic ever again, right? But the guy was sitting back on it, and I was telling you about this. The guy was sitting back on a fancy chair with a suit and a tie and everything, bald dude, looked like a biker dude, dressed well. So it didn't the image didn't mesh well, but I knew he was trying to put out classes, right? Well, anyways, that short little course taught me how to land a contract. I landed my first contract. So that one thing that I got from there was really what drove the rest of my business, right? But that one thing I wouldn't have been able to figure it out on my own. I would have to pay attorneys and just go through all kinds of stuff, just asking questions on how to do stuff. And the guy had already walked the path. Like, why not? So it was an ego thing for me to sit there and then try to figure it out all by myself. Yeah, I can go to YouTube University. I can look at this. I can look at that. And then next thing you know, you have and I'll speak for myself, but you have this mind dump of information inside your head. You just don't know how to
piece it
together. Yeah, you don't know how to piece it together. And it becomes confusing, and the drive goes away. Why? Because it's not in a way that you can understand it.
Absolutely, the drive goes away. It's something I say all the time, and I tell my kids this. Success breeds confidence, and confidence breeds success.
Yeah.
It's so important to have an early win.
It's
right?
a vicious circle.
It really is. But if you don't have that early win, it doesn't need to be a home run, but just some type of success, that motivation fizzles. It just, and we've all heard that before, but it's very true. Like, you're not always going to be motivated. What carries you through is discipline and commitment, because at night, you're motivated to work out. When the alarm clock goes off at 4:30, where's the motivation?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Not there.
It's cold.
So you're exactly. God, that bed feels nice.
Yeah.
So the motivation isn't always going to be there, but if you can get an early win, that little bit of success gives you confidence. Look, whatever you're pursuing, whether it's entrepreneurship, a business, real estate, you believe it works, or you wouldn't be pursuing it.
Yeah.
Right? You already believe it works. But when it actually works for you, meaning dollars in your bank account, your belief level goes here, and that breeds more success.
Yeah. I totally agree. And it's really, I mean, it's an investment. What you have, it's an investment in yourself, right? But it's not just, this is one thing that I learned about cutting the timeline. Right, cutting the learning curve. I went into, I started paying for mentoring and joining mastermind groups and just getting in bigger spaces, right, where I felt like I was inadequate.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, I feel like the stupidest guy here.
And when people talk about getting out of your comfort zone, that's a huge part of it, right?
Bro, oh my God. It was just, to me, it was mind-blowing, right? Walking into a space, and I would ask myself while I was sitting at a table, what the fuck am I doing here? What am I going to bring of value to these people? These guys are crushing it. These people are, but it's I was paying my way into those spaces, right? If you're not blessed with a circle that brings you, that's already naturally like that, which most people are not. We kind of begin to pick out the friends that end up in our areas as we go through life, right? But if you don't have that circle, now I do, thankfully, I have a group of people that, I mean, they inspire me, they motivate me, and it's just, it's a badass group of friends, right? But at the beginning, I joined mastermind groups, and I joined places where I could tap into somebody else's knowledge, and I felt inadequate going through it. Now, my thing behind that was I want to learn how to do the strategic stuff, the tactical stuff, the business tips and the tricks. Like that was my mindset, right? I went into it, and I saw a lot of that, like, strategy and branding and business development and operations and operating systems and all kinds of stuff, right? All kinds of amazing shit. But the thing that really hit me the most was the mindset shift that I got while I was exposed to the like these bigger spaces. I mean that's really it's self-empowerment. You know what I mean? I walked into a space where I thought I was gonna get one thing, and it got tenfold, just because I was open to that mindset and I left my ego outside.
That's huge, and I know we talked about ego too, because that was a big thing. I don't think I know for me at the beginning.
Yeah,
just checking that. But if you don't know where to start with those relationships and how to build them, pay to get access to it. I know that sounds crazy to some people, and those people that it sounds crazy to will never get it. Yeah. They'll never get it. But it's an investment. Even if you walk away with just one relationship, that will evolve and turn into more. Mm-hmm. But as far as that mindset, that just kind of that shift of the way that you look at things, I think if you asked anybody who wasn't wealthy, do you think wealthy people think differently than you do? Do you think wealthy people look at money differently than you do? They would all say yes. Okay, then we shouldn't expect that stuff to change for us. We have to change for it. We need to start changing the way that we look at opportunity, start changing the way that we look at money. How do you do that unless you're around it? And I know there's probably some listeners out there who's like, but I'm not around.
I can read a book. I saw that one video. The memes tell me what to do. Yeah. No, the reality of it is you have to be overly exposed to that kind of kind of thing. I grew up in a mobile home, man. I mean, my upraising was humble, right? I never lacked anything. I can't say that I was suffering and I lived in poverty, because I didn't. I never felt like I was poor or that I was, But my mindset in terms of wealth was very different, right? So understanding it is one thing. Understanding, okay, cool, this is what wealth looks like is one thing. Adopting it and believing that you can get to that point is what really takes all the work. Yeah,
believing that you talked about just feeling kind of inadequate.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've sat in some rooms before where what the fuck am I doing here? Like, if anybody really knows how little I know, they're gonna laugh me out of here, right? But it's I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but in a way it kind of is. It's just put yourself out there, be confident in what you do know, be real with people, and just add value in whatever way that you can. And here's what's really cool about people that are really successful and wealthy: they don't have a scarcity mindset.
Oh yeah,
it's not about, hey, no, I'm not gonna talk to you because you may do this deal and I want it. Instead, they're more than happy, I find, in most cases, to share or to just have a conversation, to answer questions maybe that you have. And I think somebody will probably relate to this as well, because you talk about the YouTube and conceptually understanding it versus making that shift. Right. It's like I can get on YouTube and watch a video of how to swim.
Yep.
And believe me, I got it. I can tell you everything that you have to do from that video. I've got to kick. I've got to keep my body prone. I got to move my arms. I got to make sure I breathe. Conceptually, I got it. You throw me in the deep end, that's a whole nother thing. Yeah. Right? So you got to get it in the deep end with some people that already know how to swim. Maybe you got some floaties on, whatever. Maybe that's a stupid analogy, but
no, I think it's perfect. I love it. I think it's perfect because it does make perfect sense. If you don't have that, you drown. I mean, even though you have the theoretical knowledge of how to approach the thing or the project or the deal, when you go through it, the real questions pop up, right? Yep. And if you don't have even just a different light and perspective, man. I mean, that's a huge difference. That to me is empowering somebody else to think, for themselves. But there has to be a gateway to that. There has to be an aligned path, right? For somebody to just adopt that way of thinking, get their beliefs rewired, and that takes time.
And I know we've talked.
Tried it all.
Yeah, go ahead, finish.
I've tried it all: meditation, journaling, and sitting with myself, and then just screaming my frustrations out into the world, and talking to the universe, and then all kinds of stuff, right? And that's, I think it's a path of self-discovery, really, what it comes down to. But when you find that golden nugget of belief within you, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you have that intentional effort that you're putting into the investment of being yourself, of putting yourself. But to me, it would not have happened had I not been swimming in the waters which I am now. Right, and I felt inadequate coming into it. I felt like, no, I don't. First off, it was total ego battle, going into places like, no, I can figure this out. I have this, I got this, and then costly mistakes, and just took me 6 months to learn something that I would have picked up in a week, just shit like that. But it's a process of self-discovery, and I think that's one of the things that people do not realize. Or most people do not realize when they're making an investment in yourself. You're going to make an investment in yourself either through time, trial and error, or in money.
Yeah, and to be honest, and not everybody likes to hear this, it's usually both.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of it. But, everybody has a different perspective, I guess, on life and what they want out of it. But I think something that's common for most people is they want control.
Oh, yeah.
Some freedom of time. If they have a family, they want to be present for their family and leave a legacy or leave something for them. Other people, maybe it's community or religion or church or whatever it is, but I think there are some core things that people want. And there's more than one way to get it, but we do have to do something different. We do have to push ourselves out of that comfort zone, and it's coming back to that kind of success breeds confidence, like you said, that one thing, if you can get that one nugget where things kind of open up and projecting it, I think was the word that you used. You've got to put it out there. There's so much power in making a decision.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to say that again, because not thinking about something, not wanting it or hoping for it, but actually making a decision and then moving towards it, right? Because the naysayer always like, well, that person was so lucky. They were in the right place at the right time. If I would, but my boss got in the way, or my spouse, or whatever, whoever you're pointing that finger at, right? But that person was lucky. Well, I don't know who said it. The harder I work, the luckier I get. But if so many times, and I've fallen into this too, where there are things that you want in life, and so we're sitting there and we think about it and we hope for it. That's never going to come to fruition. It's when we make a decision, whatever it takes, I'm going to get it. And then you start moving towards it. And whatever your belief system is, like I know this for a fact. If you start moving towards it, the pieces that it will take to get you to that end goal, they'll start to fall into place.
Yep.
The relationships, the people that you meet, they're not incidental. They're not happenstance. They're happening because they're going to get you to that end goal. But that would never happen if you didn't make the decision to start moving towards it. And I'll tell you this too, it's not a straight line, right? In your mind, it's like, okay, here's where I want to get. I'm going to make the decision to do this, and it's going to get me there. And I can't tell you how many times I've met this person, and I think, okay, with this, we're going to do this, and it's going to get me to here. And it doesn't, but it did lead me to here. So it's not always in the time frame I want it to be. But as long as you're moving forward and you have that persistence, you're going to figure it out. It's so when you're just sitting back in your routine doing the same thing that you've always done, why would you expect anything to change? That's absurd. I'll get off my soapbox here, but I really believe if somebody makes a decision, commits to it 100%, and starts working towards it, you're gonna figure it out. You are, and you're like, there's a reason you have that desire in you to do it. So trust it. Trust yourself. Don't overthink it. So have you ever read the 5-second rule from Mel Robbins?
5-second rule. No.
Okay, so I'll give you just like a quick little synopsis, but basically she tells it with her life story and everything. It's good, but basically we all have, you can call it whatever you want, instinct, God-given compass, intuition. Okay, we all have it. And when we're faced with a decision, we instinctually know what we should do. Okay. You have this desire in you to do certain things. And when faced with a decision, you know what you should do. But you got about 5 seconds to make that decision and act on it. Actually start moving towards it. Otherwise, your brain's going to step in and start to talk you out of it. And the reason is, and she backs it up with neuroscience, is because our brain's primary job is to keep us safe, right? Raphael, don't die. Don't touch that. It's hot. Like we learn from experience, and it's to keep us safe. So because we are creatures of habit, as we go about our day-to-day routine and we make decisions, our brain knows the outcome of each of those decisions because we do it every day. Yeah. That's our bubble. That's our safety, right? So as soon as we're considering something outside of the norm, we're faced with a different decision, we know what we should do, but we got about 5 seconds to act on it. Otherwise, our brain's going to jump in, well, what if this happens? Or what if this happens? Did you think about this? Or this could go wrong. Because our brain is designed to pull us back into what it knows is safe. And to tie back to another book, Think and Grow Rich, that's what Napoleon Hill talks about in that book. One of the biggest things that separates the wealthy people from everybody else is the way they make decisions. And this is something I was horrible at because love my parents. But growing up, I can tell you one thing that was drilled in my head. If you're ever faced with a big decision, especially a big financial decision, you need to sleep on it. You need to give it some thought. You need to think about it. Now, look, I'm not saying to take wild risk here. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich says wealthy people, when faced with a decision, they
One of the things that I always talk about with my students is the concept of analysis paralysis and like how that kicks in, right? So it makes perfect sense. I think we are wired for survival. I mean, take it back to Stone Age. Yeah. We're wired for survival and quick responses and everything. However, I think the self-doubt kicks in, and then we have that problem of analysis paralysis that can actually kick in and kind of sneak its way in, even on great decisions when you feel like it's a good thing to pull the trigger on. So 5-second rule, I'm definitely going to pick that up, man.
Just kind of along the same lines too, and opportunities and seeing them and recognizing them. I'm all full, a ton of analogies today, guys. But you buy a new car, you start to see that car, right?
Right.
You buy a new car, you start to see that car everywhere. Those cars were there before you saw them. You just weren't looking for them, and that's so true in opportunity. But our brain so many times I think is wired to look at the obstacle, not the solution, to look at the downside, not the upside. So I watched this video. Is Simon Sinek, I think I pronounced his name correctly, but he talked about this specifically, and I'm just going to kind of steal some of what he said. But he said, pilots are trained. They know this inherently, because in flight school, if you're in a flight simulator and somebody's in your ear saying, hey, don't hit that mountain, don't hit that mountain, don't hit that mountain, inevitably they hit the mountain because you're focused on the mountain.
The mountain.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like the downhill skier who just back and forth, in and out of the trees. They're going through a heavily wooded area, and they're just cutting through these trees. And from the outscape, you're looking at it and say, how are they doing that? Well, if you're skiing through that and you're saying, don't hit that tree, don't hit that tree, you're going to hit the tree. But if instead you're just looking for the path, you see that it's very clearly, and it's easy to follow that path through the trees. So it's just tying into kind of what I was saying earlier, making a decision that you're going to do something, acting towards it. It's not always a straight line, but you'll see the path and you'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, and it's that much better whenever you do have some guidance. I do not recommend anybody starting up or going into a business venture or anything like that without having some type of guidance behind it. I'm not saying, you got to spend 4 years, doing an MBA or whatever. It's not that. It's just talk to somebody who's done it. If it's not you paying for coaching, if it's not you, picking up a mastermind or whatever, at least get in a space where people are doing the stuff that you want to get into, because you're going to see a lot of the stuff that can come at you real quick.
Yeah, quick. Whether you work with Raphael or you work with us or you work with somebody else that it really doesn't matter. But work with somebody that knows more than you.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be discussing what we're discussing had I not done exactly that. And I've paid tens of thousands of dollars on multiple occasions to learn, I told you I was a college dropout. I'm still a big believer in education. I'm just a big believer in specialized education. Mm-hmm. And some of the wealthiest people I know don't have college degrees. And it's not that college is bad, because I know very successful people that have college degrees. It's not that it's good or bad. It's just what you do with it, right? Yeah. And some of the wealthiest people I know still pay for masterminds. They still pay to go to these groups. Well, why? Why in the world would they do that? It's because we can always level up, and the only way to get there is to be around the people that are there, or that are already there, if that makes sense. It's like I could pick any athlete, but it's like Tiger Woods in his prime. He still had a swing coach. You tell me the guy didn't know how to swing a club? He was number one in the world. But he wanted to maintain that greatness, and he wanted to get better. We've talked about working out, but when I first started working out forever ago, my first go at it, I didn't work out in high school or anything. So I decided I was going to get a gym membership. This is my early 20s. So I go to the gym. I actually bought it as a gym membership at Bally's. I don't know if you remember Bally's Fitness.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I don't think they exist anymore. But the reason I remember it clearly being at Bally's is they offered a $10 month-to-month membership. Mm-hmm. Now, for me, that seemed perfect because it had never worked out. So if I decided it wasn't for me, I could cancel. Now, in hindsight, that's just stupid, right? I wasn't committed. I already had an exit plan. But that was where my mindset was at that time. And I think I went 2 times. Yeah. Literally, and I'll tell you why. It's because I didn't want to look stupid. If you go to the gym, you've never worked out, and they've been working out forever. I think I was back in the corner in the one machine that never got used, right? Probably spent more time at the drinking fountain, and then I just never went again. But
you were that guy.
I was. So a year after that, I got a gym membership at 24 Hour Fitness. It's not my gym anymore, but that's where I got it. The difference was I made a decision that I was going to get in shape. Not, I'm going to go try out a gym. Definitively, I'm going to get in shape. And I walked in. The salesperson didn't have to sell me anything because I'd already decided.
You were ready, yeah.
Yep. And I said, I want a gym membership. I'll pay for the next year. But I also want a personal trainer 5 days a week for the next year, and I'll pay for that today. Like, this is a true story. I wrote a check. I could tell by the sales, this has never happened before. It was a big check. I wrote a check, and I paid for a year of personal training up front. But the next day I was at the gym, right? It kind of burnt the boats. So you're all in at that point. I'd spent the money. I wasn't going to not go it wasn't $10 month to month. I wrote a big ass check. And I went, and he kicked my butt. That's what I paid him to do, though, right? And he kicked my butt, But in about a month's time, I started to see these results physically, which comes back to that success breeds confidence, that made me want to keep going. And it eventually became part of my lifestyle. Look, I outgrew him. Actually, I've had other coaches, though. One of my coaches before I moved here to Phoenix, she, elite athlete, competed in a lot of the top CrossFit, kind of regionals and games, super elite athlete. And my wife and I would pay her to train us every morning at 5:30. And look, I knew how to work out. I was really good at it. I could train most people. So why did I pay her to train me? Because I didn't want to be good. I wanted to be great.
Yeah.
Right? She would see little things that I didn't see that could critique it and help me get better. And she pushed me harder than I pushed myself. Look, in the gym by myself, I push myself and I work out hard, but she wouldn't let me get away with anything, right? If I'm stopping trying to catch my breath, no, she's on it, go. And so it's like, do you want to be good or do you want to be great?
Yeah.
And I just believe that in anything that we approach and do. Like, if you're going to do it, let's do it. Let's go
do
for
it, right?
Yeah.
Commit. It's the difference between being being committed to something, being just interested in making something happen. If you're interested, I think it's going to get you to a point where you understand a little bit about it, but it's not going to get you across the finish line.
Yeah, so many people.
You gotta be committed.
I'm not saying you have to do it full time. You don't have to be a full time real estate investor. And I know I keep going back to real estate. It doesn't have to be real estate, whatever it is for you. But if you have this dip your toe in the water type approach, well, I'm just going to dip my toe in the water, because so many times that's what it is.
You're gonna dip your toe in like 10 different buckets.
Exactly.
I'm
going to test it out, and if it works, then I'll give it more attention. I'll put in more money. I'll put in more time, and then we wonder why these things never really work out. It's because we didn't decide. No, I'm going to make this one work. If you have this kind of half-ass approach to life, don't be surprised that the results you get are mediocre.
Right? Half-ass results. Yeah, absolutely. Man. No, it's great stuff. I feel like I know that we have similarities and overlapping in history, right? In the way that we were kind of brought up and kind of fell into this space, this world of real estate. And I think what you've done, so far is it's amazing. Bringing perspective and like the experience that you have over 20 years and just entrepreneurship, all together, like the highs, the lows, the emotional stability, the growth that you've done at a personal level, also at a professional level. I mean, all that stuff is amazing. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and maybe find out a little bit more about the real estate education, training that you guys have, where would somebody go?
Yeah, let me say one thing first, and then I'll answer that question. Somebody asked me this question, doesn't matter when, I think it was about 3-4 weeks ago. They were asking we were talking about wholesaling commercial real estate, and they were like, wow, so this is a fix and flipper, okay? He's doing multiple fix and flips. He knows nothing about commercial, and it really opened his eyes because, the whole plain and simple, making more on a wholesale deal than he is off of one fix and flip, but it's time intensive. He's putting in money, he's taking on risk, right? And he's like, wow, that's something that he was really interested in, but he's like, I don't know commercial. I don't understand it. I need to learn it. And he said, so how long do you think into your career as an investor, investing in residential, how much time did you need to put in before you would have felt comfortable to make this transition, right, into commercial? Do you feel it was like 5 years, 10 years, or, and I laughed, and this is the honest to God's truth. I'm like, I wish I'd heard about it when I started day one. Day one, I wish I knew about it learned about it then. I don't think, is there value in learning the residential side? 100%. Is there value in doing other types of deals? Yes, there is. Is it necessary? No. I think you can, wherever you are, you should start learning it right now. Why would you put it off? Like you could, this is the one thing I'm confident in, is anybody that starts learning it is going to say, wow, I wish I had learned this 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? I wish I'd learned, because it's not that difficult and there's just so much opportunity. So anyway, to answer your question, look, there may be some listeners that really are interested in what we're doing on that side. The commercial wholesaling piece, the repositioning piece, or have other projects you're already investing, maybe because I work with some incredible lenders where, guys, there's so much money in the market right now. I can't stress that enough. Like, if you're not learning how to take advantage of that, you're crazy. I'm talking about private money where you can come in maybe 90% LTC at 4 3/4 with that convert to 25-year loan amortization over 25 years. There's so much money to go out and tackle these deals. So that's another big piece that I'm working with other investors, is just getting them. How many times you've heard, oh, gosh, I got this great deal, I just need to get the money. All right, well, then let's get the money.
Yeah.
Right? If it's a great deal, the money's there. So maybe we partner with people on it, whatever it may be. Like I said, I like looking at the pieces of the puzzle. Let's figure out how to put it together and make it work for everyone. So I wanted to do 2 things. Number one, this is just for any listener. If you are looking to get started in real estate, or you're already an active investor, this is just kind of a thank you for watching and a thank you for having me on. This is a no-cost, just strategy call. Let me explain what that is. That's just somebody on my team that will carve out about an hour with you. They're going to do a deep dive before you guys get on the call. So there's going to be a short preliminary call where we ask you some questions about you and your goals. This is, I want to be clear, this is not a sales call. We're not selling anything on this. This is purely to help you in your investment business.
Wow.
And then they're going to spend some time on the phone with you. This is with an actual investor, okay? Somebody this is what
somebody
they
who's
do.
doing it.
And they're going to do an analysis of your market. Because look, I know you just got back from San Francisco. San Francisco is not Phoenix. Phoenix is not Newark, New Jersey, right? Are you in Memphis, Tennessee? Every market is different. So what's taking place in your market? Because there's 4 phases in the market. We need to understand where we are so we can anticipate what's coming up next, so we can profit now, protect ourselves, and capitalize on upcoming opportunities. Okay. So let's analyze your market based off of your experience or lack of, whichever it is, and the strategy that you want to focus on. And is that the best strategy? We'll give you some insight on that. And here's the one thing I can promise to every listener is I know we can open your ideas to some opportunities there that you're probably not seeing, and a lot of your competition probably isn't seeing. Okay, so that's something that immediately after you can take that and start applying it to your business. So to do that, I don't know if we can post this in the chat or whatever we do, but you just go to realestateki.com/CEO.
realestateki.com/CEO. Yeah, we can put that on the show notes.
Okay, so there will be just a calendar available where you can schedule a time to do that. The other thing is, if there's somebody listening to this says, okay, no, this is something I really would like to not just learn more about, I want to do. I would like to work closer with you, Trent, work closer with your team. I want to learn commercial real estate. I want to learn commercial wholesaling. Well, then we can discuss what that education piece looks like. And you can see, number one, if it's a fit for you. And then I'm also going to see if it's a fit for me, because my capacity is only so big. So I am going to work with a handful of people. So if that's something that you're interested in, and you're going to have to invest in yourself and your business, okay? But this is where you'll be working directly with me and my team. Then you can email me directly. It's Trent, Trent, @realestateki.com. Now, the strategy call, you'd be nuts not to do that, because everybody should do that, because that's just free. Again, we're not offering educate, we're not selling. That's just something everyone should take advantage of. Go and schedule that on the calendar. But if you want to explore working closer with me and my team, then email me directly, and we'll schedule a time to talk, and I'll personally call those individuals and talk to them one-on-one.
Wow, thank you, man. That's huge, especially that strategy call. Again, cutting the learning curve pays for itself in no time. Yeah. I know that for a fact. If you're serious about something and you're committed, not just interested, it's definitely something that people have to, take into account, right? Cutting the learning curve. How do I do it? Who do I do it with? And you want to tap into people who are actually out there. They're actually doing the work that you want to get better at. So that's huge. Before we sign off, I have a question that I like to ask every single one of my guests, and that's if you were 17 years old and you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self. I said that wrong, but if
I ran into myself,
yes, that's what I meant. What would you tell that kid?
Probably a couple things. Number one, you can do anything you want. Don't forget that, because there were times that I've lost that and I've had some failures, and you start to doubt yourself, right? And it's taken me longer than it should have to maybe get back on track. And the other big thing is don't hesitate and pursue your dreams. Like that, I think we all get guilty of second guessing ourselves sometimes. And as I look back, the things that I've wanted to do, I should have done them when I first thought about them. When it first came to me. Ask any real estate investor I bet if you ask a real estate investor to just list a couple things that they wish they'd done different, one thing all of them would have in common is I wish I'd started sooner, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. And I wish I'd got the help
Put me on
sooner.
that boat. Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Say, pick it, commit to it, and don't hesitate. Like, go for it now.
Wow.
That's it.
Love it, man. Well, it's been a blast having you. Thank you for all the information. I know we tackled a lot of the real estate stuff on the commercial side. I mean, we actually dove into the mindset and the personal growth side of things, which, I think it's one of the biggest pieces that's always missing. But, this whole episode has been insane, man. I appreciate it.
That's a huge part. I appreciate it too, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Boom. That's a wrap.